Hello everybody, welcome back to Lower League America on Compass Football, episode 5. Jason Davis here, and as always, I'm joined by Nipun Chopra from Sock Takes. Nipun, how are you?
I'm great, Jason. How are you on this wonderful day?
I'm doing well. I jumped the gun there because I'm so excited to talk about today's subject, the New York Cosmos. We're going to dive into the history of the Cosmos, going all the way back to the earliest days, but mostly focusing on the last couple of years for the Cosmos in the new NASL. But before we do that, we've got some business to take care of. Let's start with Nipun Chopra's trademark shout out here. What are you repping today, Nipun?
The greatest club in the world with the greatest supporter group in the world. In the 11 today, shout out to Brickyard Battalion, the greatest supporter group in the world, hands down. That's science.
Now, if you didn't say that, would they kick you out? Would you have to
I'm on the board.
walk a mile naked? Okay, on the board. Oh, a boardroom coup of Nipun Chopra would be something else.
That's right.
When it comes to Brickyard Battalion. All right. Before we dive into the Cosmos, we've done the shout out. I also think we should focus a little bit on the news of the day, Nipun. The USL has announced rebranding for their 3 leagues, the 3 men's adult leagues. Let's be specific about what we're talking about here. This is something you reported at Sock Takes yesterday, that the USL was going to be going through a rebrand, and now we know what those identities are. It is for the USL PDL, starting at the bottom. League 2 is what they're going to be calling this. And I believe there's a color attached. I think it's red for that league. Then we move up a level. We talk about USL D3, which hasn't yet played a game, but is slated for 2019. We're going with blue, and that's called League 1. And then you go up to the top level, the top tier for USL, the league with 30-plus teams and growing. That's going to be gold, and a star is attached, and it's called the championship. Do I have all of this correct?
Except the only thing I'll add is they do still have the name USL in front of them. So it's USL Championship, USL League 1, USL League 2. But the colors and the general theme is exactly correct.
So they're sticking, and they've also announced a new corporate logo, talked about the umbrella of this. This is obviously a big move for USL to sort of recalibrate everybody's expectations when it comes to these leagues. Nipun, I don't know how much commentary you want to do on this news. It's still sort of percolating for me as to how much I like this. I do have a problem a little bit with sort of just taking what exists already in the Football League in England and bringing it over here to the United States, as if we can't come up with something on our own.
Well, I mean, there's multiple ways to look at this, and I think in a very brief sense, I'll put it this way. I think it was designed to attract attention. I think it was, which it did. It was designed, the whole idea was designed to create a new brand, which was desperately needed because USL D3 didn't have a name. And there are plans ahead for USL that require a new brand. In terms of the names, Jason, I don't really have a problem with it. I can see why some people do, including yourself. But on the list, and you and I cover this now every week, on the list of problems in lower division soccer, this naming thing is probably right at the bottom of my concerns.
You're right with that. Absolutely, you're right with that. I just don't like the incongruity of calling something that's the 3rd division in the United States League 2.
Right.
It bothers me with England as well, so it's not just related to USL here. One thing that did come up, and USL tried to convey as much information as they could about this rebrand. I noticed on Twitter, Nipun, there was a specific question about promotion and relegation that I believe they asked themselves, essentially, sort of rhetorically. The answer here, and people will be able to see it when they watch Lower League America on their screens, the answer didn't commit to anything. It was kind of a hedge against maybe a future, but not really.
Yeah, so within the last 4 hours, I've spoken to a couple of USL owners. Until this moment, until today's announcement, every single USL owner I talked to basically said that ProRel was not in the works for USL. Both owners today told me that it is a serious idea in the sense that they have discussed it, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So that they're even on background, they're hedging their bets in describing this. So the way I conclude that, Jason, is it's a possibility, but it's not happening anytime soon. USL, the priority right now is building out USL D3.
All right, so we'll see how that goes. Rebranding for USL in the books today, fallout still to come, or response still to come in the coming weeks. Let's talk now about our subject of the day, Nipun. We'll take a hard left turn. It's the New York Cosmos, and perhaps no soccer brand in American history is as powerful, as resilient, perhaps you could say that, after a long dormant spell, or as influential as the New York Cosmos.
I agree. In a lot of ways, you can track the history of modern day soccer with Cosmos, because both iterations of the NASL have risen and fallen with this historic club.
Now, we go all the way back to the beginnings of the NASL in 1968. Just a couple years later, the Cosmos came on board. They played on Randall's Island. They played wherever they could back then. They won a championship, I believe, in 1972, the first ever title for the Cosmos. But the Cosmos that we really remember, Nipun, or people who lived through that era certainly remember, and those of us too young have gone back and learned about, is the Cosmos led by Steve Ross of Warner Communications, that featured Pele and the coup of signing the world's most famous soccer player to leave his native Brazil and play for the only other club he ever played for. Giorgio Canaglia, the attitude, the goals, certainly Carlos Alberto and Franz Beckenbauer. That's the Cosmos that really still has resonance in American soccer.
And it's so true. And a name I'll add, by the way, is Johan Cruyff. I didn't realize this, but Johan Cruyff played in Cosmos jersey in a couple of friendlies. So even Cruyff is involved with the Cosmos. What I'll say, Jason, as someone that grew up not in America, I grew up in India, as a lot of people who are watching this know or can tell. I remember that the only American soccer club that I knew of growing up was the Cosmos. I didn't hear about the Galaxy until Beckham joined the Galaxy. I didn't hear about any other club except Cosmos when I was in India. And I think it shows the name recognition that this historic club does. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they set records for attendance at the Meadowlands Stadium when Pele was there. Now, it all quickly fell apart. We know that the end of the NASL came in 1984. Hemorrhaging teams, spending too much money, all kinds of things happening there. The name went dormant for a long time, and we don't have time to get into the story of Pepe Penton, but if you have some time on your hands and you want to learn about why the Cosmos brand sort of went into mothballs for a number of years, it does come down to Pepe Penton. But let's fast forward to 2010 and get us to sort of the dawn of the new age of the Cosmos. Now, in 2010, Pepe Penton finally sold the name and the rights to the Cosmos to Paul Kemsley, who has a history in European soccer and in English soccer specifically. And all Paul Kemsley really did, Nipun, was try to sell some T-shirts, as far as I can tell.
Paul Kemsley is one of those incredible figures that you read about and you can't believe half of the stuff that you read. Paul Kemsley era, as you said, it was a T-shirt era. It's T-shirt time, as the situation would say. It is basically how we summarize that era. What we see now, Jason, or what became the next iteration, really came in with Sella Sports. At a time, Jason, that really was our first indication into the mindset of New York Cosmos. At the time, and you know this better than I do because my interest in U.S. soccer didn't exist at the time, but at the time, New York Cosmos actually did communicate with MLS. This is well known, it's documented, and decided not to join MLS and decided NASL. So let me ask you, Jason, what do you remember of that time and how it went down?
You know, honestly, the discussions about the Cosmos maybe joining MLS came and went so fast, and so many things were happening back then. You know, just before Paul Kemsley sold the team or sold the rights to Sela Sports and Seamus O'Brien, they had brought in Eric Cantona. We were all sort of wowed by the idea of Eric Cantona being involved in American soccer. They took some pictures of him on a throne with a ball. It was very nice. You may see those on the screen here as we go through this. He was still around when Sela Sports bought into the team. And really, I remember sort of the idea of the Cosmos joining MLS coming quickly, and then going away quickly. Then, of course, Sela Sports decided that they were going to come up with this idea to build a stadium in right on the border of Brooklyn and Long Island, or Queens and Long Island. I'm not sure the geography there. And there was more about, okay, let's challenge Major League Soccer, right. And that's sort of where obviously the sort of new Cosmos and the Cosmos that may again still play games at some point in the future. Really, the identity of the team, despite two different ownership groups, which we'll talk about, has been the challenge. They've always been the group or the club that's been willing to sort of go toe-to-toe with Major League Soccer and not back down in the face of the top division sort of holding sway over much of the country.
And I'll add to that, Jason, the story of Cosmos really was starting to happen in terms of a worldwide understanding of the Cosmos happened with the Paul Scholes testimonial. I'm a Manchester United supporter. I remember watching that. A bunch of kids who were apparently, collected from all over the place, some academy players, and of course, Eric Cantona leading them. Eventually, yeah. Marcus Senna signed, of course, Raul signed. But I remember the testimonial very well. I remember almost every minute of it because Paul Scholes is one of my favorite players of all time. And I remember thinking, wow, this American team is playing at truly the greatest stage, at the farewell of one of the greatest players who have ever graced the game. Well, how amazing is that for American soccer? And then learning that the team that I support, Indy 11, would be playing against them in a year from then was pretty incredible.
Yeah, at the time that the friendly at Old Trafford happened, I don't think anybody had a real sense the Cosmos were actually going to get on the field. Right. We still were sort of in this weird middle ground. The Cosmos are a brand, are they a club? They bring in some players, they get Eric Cantona out, they roll out against Manchester United. It all seemed like a dog and pony show. Of course, CELA Sports did manage to get the team on the field, and really from the get-go, they were the dominant team of NASL in the new era, and it was clear that Seamus O'Brien and CELA Sports really wanted to make some waves with not just the Cosmos name is back, but by trying to play a top brand of soccer in the United States.
And a top brand of soccer in the United States with players that ordinarily you would assume would end up in MLS. Raul, one of the greatest strikers ever. I think still has the record number of appearances for Real Madrid. It's either him or Casillas. Before Ronaldo,
and he may have had the Champions League goal scoring record, right, for a very long time as well. So that, yeah, certainly a massive figure for Spanish football and for football around the world.
Absolutely, and people may not know this, at least recent fans of the game, but Raul standing in the game was as great as Ibrahimovic is when he came to MLS. Right. So Raul signing for New York Cosmos at 34-35 was a huge get for the league, and it showed that this particular team did consider itself to be a big-time player and not a player in a small league.
Yeah, it's around this time, again, I may be a little fuzzy on the timeline here, Nipun, but it's around this time that idea of the Belmont Stadium really came to the fore. And they were to build a 30,000-seat stadium, and it sounded insane. And obviously we know now, standing here years later, that it didn't come to fruition. But that was about the ambition of the New York Cosmos. They were playing at Hofstra, but that never felt like it was quite right. It always felt like they had some bigger things possible, and they were going to drag second division soccer along with them, again, maybe in order to challenge Major League Soccer, which is, again, setting the stage and sort of foreshadowing what's to come. A couple of things to note here about the Cosmos in this era. Giovanni Savarese was their manager. Of course, now people know he's at Portland Timbers, leading the way there, having earned his opportunity at the MLS level because of what he did with the NASL and with the Cosmos, having won championships there. So proving as a proving ground for coaches in the United States. They've had some players come through. Jimmy Maurer played there. They've had some other players who have gone through the Cosmos who ended up at the top division. They also have, at one point in that era, they played sort of clearinghouse for some young American talent, who wanted to go to Europe, but needed a sort of stopover, a place to train and to sort of build a little bit before they hit 18 and can sign a contract in Europe because, of course, Article 19 of the FIFA guidelines prevent you from leaving until you're 18. And being attached to an MLS club, we know, we're still dealing with this. MLS is dealing with this, can sometimes lock you in and prevent you from moving. So the Cosmos served a couple of different roles in American soccer at the time.
Most definitely. Another player that I would highlight there in terms of Cosmos's success with players is Manu Ledesma, who is currently at FC Cincinnati, a player that I'm certain will be retained by FC Cincinnati as they move into MLS next year. Fantastic left foot, can score from anywhere on the pitch, and really came into his own during his last 2 seasons at New York Cosmos. Was absolutely magnificent. And Jason, we should also very quickly highlight that all of this that is happening with Cosmos is inextricably linked with the rhetoric and the vision of NASL at the time. Seamus O'Brien considered Cosmos, and Bill Peterson, as we've covered before, considered NASL to be worthy competitors to MLS. And Seamus O'Brien's spending in terms of players, in terms of infrastructure, which is what we're going to get to now, sort of showed that he thought that they could compete with MLS. As it turned out, both the league as well as New York Cosmos ended up almost shutting shop because of some of that spending.
Yeah, you know, the Cosmos, again, sort of led the way in NASL. They had a television partner, One World Sports,
Yes.
which was shared ownership with Sela Sports and Seamus O'Brien, so a direct interest in that product for the television outlet. You know, again, as you said, we learned later sort of how much they were spending at the time. They were willing to put that in, but as with everything, eventually a company says, well, this isn't going to work anymore. We can't justify dropping $30 million over a couple of years here on a project that we don't necessarily see the future of. And so Seamus O'Brien and Sela Sports, they shut it down. They shut it down in November of 2016, and we sort of all reckoned with this as American soccer media, as American soccer fans, when we started getting word that the Cosmos weren't answering their phones anymore. Right. The Empire of Soccer and Dave Martinez were on top of this story locally, that the Cosmos were furloughing players and staff. They weren't paying people. One World Sports shut down right around the same time, or shuttered its doors, stopped broadcasting, or sold some of its properties that were non-soccer related. So clearly they hit a breaking point at some point in 2016, Nipun.
I remember exactly where I was when I heard the news about Cosmos. I was at my friend's house in Lexington, Kentucky over Thanksgiving break when I got a message from a sauce. I refuse to use the word sources anymore. There's sauces. I received word from a source that New York Cosmos was starting to let go of players because they couldn't afford their salaries. And I remember thinking, this is insane. This is the club that is the center point of NASL. This is the club that everyone hates, but everyone aspires to be in terms of NASL clubs. And if they're shutting shop, things are really bad. And as you said, at the time, we start hearing about staff being furloughed. We start hearing about players finding other clubs because they hadn't been paid in a couple of months. As you point out, Dave Martinez did a fantastic job covering this. Other people did as well. Jake Nutting did a great job covering this stuff. And it pretty much indicated that things were not going well. By the time we got to December of 2016, Jason, it was clear that Seamus was done with the club. And it came to the point that if New York Cosmos had not been saved in late December 2016, late December 2016 turning into 2017, NASL would have not played in 2017. Yeah. So now we get to the Rocco era.
The Rocco era. Rocco rides in on his white horse. Obviously, Rocco Commisso with deep ties to New York soccer, played at Columbia University, has the field named after him there, in part because of his contributions to that university and its soccer program. He is certainly a soccer fan. There's no question about that. This isn't a guy who came in and saw an investment opportunity and decided that he was going to just put some money in to maybe get something out. Rocco Commisso is a true believer, and he comes in and saves the club, stabilizes their finances, obviously at that point. And that was, we didn't know it at the time, Nipun. I mean, we thought maybe NASL was on its last legs when Sela Sports pulled out and the Cosmos looked like they were going to close shop. When Rocco Commisso comes in and saves the club for 2017, we didn't know that would be the only season that they play under Rocco Commisso, and yet that's what happened. That's where we are. And the NASL collapsed despite the Cosmos being saved.
That's correct. Rocco comes in One thing I want to highlight is that he backpaid players and staff for months, and that is a huge credit to Rocco Commisso. He didn't have to do that when he bought the club. He could have just paid them from that moment on, but he backpaid everybody, and that's something that I think should go noticed. With Rocco, it's a very complicated history with the NASL just over the year, because at that time when he signed the contract, first of all, what we learned about from NASL USSF documents was Cosmos communicated with USL about possibly joining the league, or one version of it is basically shutting down shop and USL would buy the Cosmos brand. But there were communications with USL. Rocco decided not to go that route. I think one mistake that Rocco made at that time when he signed the contract is he didn't realize, and he said that himself, this is not news, but he didn't realize that a clause had been inserted into the NASL contract which said that clubs and owners could leave without paying an exit fee. This was inserted in late 2016, I believe. And Rocco Commisso either didn't know about it or he didn't do enough vetting to figure out what exactly he was signing. But he said in a press conference in July 2017 that he had no idea that clause existed. Yeah. And I think that eventually hurt him and hurt the NASL.
Yeah, certainly we had defections. North Carolina FC, which at the time, Railhawks changing over, I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but Steve Malik decides he's going to pull his team out of NASL.
Edmonton, Deltas folded, Indy 11 left. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and obviously that the number of clubs, the attrition for NASL led to U.S. Soccer pulling their second division sanctioning, which then led us to the current day and the ongoing lawsuit between NASL and U.S. Soccer, again, led by Rocco Commisso. Ricardo Silva is a figure in this as well that probably deserves some mention, at least tangentially to the Cosmos, because if anything, Ricardo Silva and Miami FC were the partners of the Cosmos under Rocco, trying to be the ones to save the league and to keep, and again, to challenge the powers that be in American soccer, Nipun.
Absolutely. And one thing that we should notice here is that it really would, given the circumstances the NASL was in, which was they were at their last leg, a final leg, really, firing on no cylinders. It really had to be someone like Rocco, someone who is braggadocious, irreverent, insanely wealthy. Those are adjectives that were needed for someone to even take this man seriously, given the state the NASL was in. And Rocco, given his rhetoric, has ruffled a lot of feathers and continues to do so. And in a lot of ways, he's kind of a perfect owner for New York Cosmos, a club that is irreverent, a club that is braggadocious,
bigger than life,
Absolutely. A club that said no to MLS, said no to USL, and decided to really create their own route. And that's why I think Rocco Commisso and New York Cosmos, and both of them have a lot of flaws in the decisions they've made, but they really are a perfect match.
I want to point to a quote, Nipun, that you got from Patrick Inferna, who has been a supporter of the Cosmos in their modern existence, works over at Copa 90, a guy with deep roots in American soccer. He said, "We see the club as something more than just a soccer team. It's part of New York sports identity and a massive part of American soccer history. In that regard, we see it as something worth protecting and suffering for." And I'll tack this on here. There's an element of being a sleeping giant that I think lurks around the club. We obviously hope to see that spirit awoken eventually, but the size or success of the club is something that is secondary to its health, longevity, and community impact. Within PSL Pro, we all hope to finally find a lasting home that allows us to focus on those things that our club prioritizes here in New York. So, at least for Patrick, the identity, the existence of the Cosmos, more important, or just the existence and the, trying to continue on, play games, be a living, breathing soccer entity is more important than challenging U.S. soccer, being maybe in the top division, anything like that, which, he may not speak for everybody, right, Nipun, but I think a lot of American soccer stories kind of come to this point. I just want my team to play games.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important that we got Patrick's voice in here, because this really more than owners and stuff, this really does affect fans. Fans who are obsessed with this club, who are a rabid supporter base, who have traveled far distances to go support the Cosmos. And I'm so glad that they have somewhere to play. Is it the stage that I think they should be playing at? Was NPSL an ideal stage for New York Cosmos? Definitely not. Would NPSL Pro be an ideal stage for New York Cosmos? Probably not, but maybe. But the truth is that these fans who love this club, I'm glad that it's a situation where at least they get to watch their teams play, as opposed to Fort Lauderdale Strikers, for example, who are nowhere. So that's the silver lining in what really are some dark clouds.
It's been quite the roller coaster ride for a team that last year played at Coney Island, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense there. The New York Cosmos, again, they're still going.
Yes.
They're just not playing maybe at the level that seems appropriate for their brand and their history. We'll see what the next stage in the history of the New York Cosmos is. That's going to do it for Lower League America. Jason Davis, Nipun Chopra. Nipun, any parting words? I certainly want to point people in the direction of the YouTube, the Facebook, the Twitter. Give us your feedback. I want feedback, Nipun.
I want feedback as well. And my final words are, New York Cosmos really was like a neutron star. It burned so brightly. It was a massive, massive star, illuminated its galaxy, and then collapsed, and now is a remnant, a highly dense particle in space somewhere.
Are you avoiding calling them a black hole? Because that would be the next step in that cosmic evolution.
Depending on the size of the star, they don't end up as black holes, Jason. Learn your goddamn astronomy.
You're the scientist, not me. So I'm going to defer to Nipun Chopra. All right, that's going to do it. Again, make sure you follow us on all their social medias, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're out there. Give us your ideas for future shows. Please. Follow Sock Takes. Follow Compass Football. Davis JSN. Nipun Chopra at Nipun C7.
Nipun Chopra 7.
No? Nipun Chopra 7. It's on the screen. People can just read it. That's going to do it for Lower League America this week. We'll see you next week. Bye.